Hey everybody, it's Tripl-L, and now let's talk Made in Abyss episode 4. I think we're at episode 4 now. Yeah, it's probably episode 4. Yeah, Made in Abyss episode 4. We're finally back in the Abyss, guys, and you know, going back into the Abyss, I realized I really enjoy adventure anime. I really enjoy going into the locales and seeing all this stuff. And for Abyss, I really enjoy just being back in the Abyss because it's such a pretty place. Like, I know there's despair and disaster waiting around every corner, but it's still a very pretty scenery. I really enjoy it. Like, I'm ultimately very happy to be back in the Abyss, and I especially like the starting shot with Reg's arms just tangled around, because that shot is just, it kind of captures like the sense of the Abyss, right? Like, it's so dangerous that you're going to be having to see shots like these, and I just overall liked it. I thought that was really cool. So it started off on a really strong point for me in terms of the visual kind of stuff that we were seeing on the screen. But yeah, I'm so happy to be back in the Abyss. It's a cool place to look at, and we're going into the second layer now. So, you know, in terms of the prettiness of this episode, I think it stays up there. I do notice that there's a bit of there was a bit of a, on the character art, it didn't look as rounded out or as pristine as it looked in the first episode. So I assume that's just naturally the toll of working on the episode over time, but like, it overall is still a very pretty episode. And so, you know, having the prettiness of the Abyss, and then having the charm of the characters themselves, and then the monsters again, we see the monsters again, and this, like, they have a particular art style, right? Because when you look at the monster, it's, the coloration is a bit stranger than everything else in the Abyss, and I like that, right? Because the monsters are the dangerous aspect, so giving them this kind of coloration or this kind of shading that kind of has an off-putting feeling in regards to all the other parts in the Abyss, I enjoy that. You know, it's a nice subtle visual distinction, and it does go a long way, at least for me, right? Because I'm noticing that there is a difference here. Although that said, the difference is such that the monster itself still feels like it's a part of the Abyss. It's just when it's coming up and attacking Rico and Reg, and I'm specifically talking about the spider one, the shading and the way it moves, and the way the shading moves as the monster itself is moving, just makes it seem otherworldly, but its overall aesthetic still kind of fits in with the Abyss. So I really enjoy that aspect of the art direction. I really enjoy that aspect of the art, and it is effectively a treat. It's a treat to see it in the episode. I really enjoy it. Okay, so that's like the art stuff, and me gushing about how pretty the Abyss is. Like, I'm always gonna think it's pretty. So in terms of where we start in the episode and where we end, we start in the first layer. We get context from Rico of what's going on. We find out about the contents of the envelope. We find out that Leader is supposedly coming for them. We know that there was a search party looking for them. As we go through the episode, we quickly re-meet up with Habo, and then we get some foreshadowing or some information for the future episodes to carry in our head. There's a lot of context being thrown around, and then we end up in the second layer of the Abyss. Overall, pretty cool stuff. I'm pretty happy with it. It's pretty cool stuff. Now, like, I think the value in Made in Abyss is really the characters. I think that's where the value is. And when you look at the production, when you look at the scenes, they're largely just the characters talking with each other and establishing just information. So I do think the characters, especially for this episode, play a very big role in all of this. And so now let's talk about the characters. Like, you know, I look at Rico and I see what she's doing, and I don't know if you guys feel this too, but I just can't help but think this girl is so naive. And it's just, on some degree, it's mind-boggling, but I understand, given this culture that is kind of being created in the Made in Abyss world. Given that culture, it makes sense that Rico would have this type of personality, or this type of, oh man, it's very jarring to me. And because you look at the situation, you can think, yeah, she's only this far because Reg is with her. Reg is the only reason this is even possible for this girl right now. And it's just the way that the adults themselves are condoning this is just, it's speaking of the culture that was created in the Abyss. And it's just, they say some really telling lines that really are just, like, they're kind of disturbing on one degree when you consider common sense for our world, but they make sense within the common sense of the Made in Abyss world. And it's a jarring thing because, again, like I see Riko and all I can think is that this girl is gonna experience some bad things. Like, she's gonna go through shit and then she's gonna break down. It's just because, like, at the end of the day, she's a 12-year-old girl, man. I expect nothing from her. I don't expect her to have the experience that the black or white whistles like built up over years, you know. I don't expect it from her. I expect that Reg is going to be like the ultimate trump card. But when it comes to Riko, like what? Like the biggest surprise was that she could cook food in the Abyss. And actually, that's pretty interesting. That was a very interesting thing. It makes sense that Riko has knowledge on the Abyss. And it makes sense that I guess she would know all those preparation methods. Because in the end of the day, she goes in there mostly unprepared. She doesn't really have a backpack on her. At least this is from my recollection. There's not a big backpack. Like, you know, she is going in there with the mentality of living off the land, and that's where the food comes in. But now in terms of the things with the Abyss, I think this might be a nice little indication of things to come in the future, because there's some lines here that make you wonder, like, wait, what does that mean? Especially one line where Riko goes, what is taken from the Abyss is eventually returned to the Abyss, whether that be relics or lives. And, you know, that's very interesting, because when you look at Riko was born in the Abyss, so technically she was taken out of the Abyss. So her returning to the Abyss is, you know, there is the poetic justice there. Like, she does have a point, like she has returned to the Abyss. So that's very terrifying in some regards, because now you don't know the connotation of, well, does that mean that the Abyss is going to take her life, or is it going to just claim her life for all of eternity and she's just going to be living in the Abyss from now on? You know, that's the question. And I do want to say thanks to the commenter who pointed out some stuff about the Abyss and the climbing sickness, because that I didn't fully appreciate the gravity of that situation. So I thank that commenter. You know who you are. Anyway, keep in mind the climbing sickness, because we're going to talk about that at the end of the video most likely. Anyway, back to Riko. You know, again, so naive, and just the things that she says is just ominous, but on all heck. And then in terms of the characters, like, again, next interaction we had was with Hobble. And, you know, let's just put away the fact that this man is fast. Let's put away that this man has most likely earned his black whistle. Like, good God, man. Wow. That is just wow. So with Hobble, you know, he just continues fleshing out the perspective of the Made in Abyss world. And I'm still just blown away by how non-bureaucratic these people are, because like Hobble is ultimately coming down there, and he's there, and he's pretty much good enough with just seeing this awesome treasure that is Reg. You know, that was his payment. He's clearly a character that likes the adventure. He's clearly a character that understands what kind of role the Abyss plays in their lives, and so it's pretty cool to see him there talking with the kids and just being supportive and not stopping Riko, even though he totally could. And then you have like his like words, like, at the end of the day, we're all children of the netherworld. And that's like a relatively big phrase. I think especially because these people make their livings on the Abyss. You know, they're saying like, yeah, we're already pretty much enraptured in the thing that is the Abyss. So there's no way for us to escape this ever. And just, you know, he gets the flashback with Riko as a kid, and he's just like talking about like this was going to happen eventually. And it's just interesting to see that level of futility when it comes to the people's lifestyles around the Abyss. Like, again, this Made in Abyss does a really good effort with its world building, and it does world building without actually giving us exposition on the world. It does world building just by the way that the characters behave, and thus allowing viewers to kind of extrapolate their beliefs based on that. And that's really cool. That's super cool. I really enjoy it, and like characters like Hobble make it for me. And again, Riko, man, Riko, you're so naive. Like, you say you're gonna do okay, and it's like, I don't believe you at all, Riko. I don't. You're smart, but I don't believe you. You don't have raw experience. I don't believe her. But you know, she might have the luck of the Abyss on her side. She might just get through. Another thing I want to point out is like, and this is more like a visual metaphor. You see Riko's naivety and her as a child, and then you look at the aesthetics of the Abyss, and then you see like there's the commonality there, you know. Her and the aesthetic of the Abyss, that personality reflects perfectly on the prettiness that is the Abyss, right? So it wouldn't be surprising as we go deeper into the Abyss, Rico's perspective gets more and more dark, and that will change also to some degree with the visuals of the abyss. I think that'll be a pretty interesting kind of visual metaphor to have going on. But for right now, I do like the agreement that's going on in Rico's character and her overall optimism and the general prettiness that the abyss is kind of throwing out there for us. I think that'd be a pretty cool visual metaphor. Now, towards the end of the episode, Hannibal gives us the warning of the person who's at the seeker camp. It's pretty scary. You know, he's saying that Rico's gonna see some things that's gonna be disturbing, and you know, to Reg to protect her and all that. And he's warning her of the person that came back with Liza, the person that pretty much saved Rico. And it's like, is this the climbing sickness? Is this where the climbing sickness is coming into play? Are we gonna see someone who's like so disturbed because of the climbing sickness, that because we know they were at a deeper level and then they rose back up to the second layer? So yeah, what kind of person are we gonna see there? I'm gonna be really interested in that, and I'm gonna wonder, is that gonna be one of the first things that kind of like dissuades Rico, or like kind of just like dampers her mood? Because again, there's one thing to be aware of what horrors await you, and then there's another thing to experience the horrors that await you. So I want to see what Rico's gonna do in that situation. Is it gonna phase her? It's what I'm ultimately asking. Anyway, Made in Abyss episode 3, loved it, man. It was awesome. I really enjoy it. I'm so happy to be back in the Abyss. And yeah, guys, let me know what you thought down below. Apologies for the late upload. I'm a bit behind on a lot of things right now, but thanks so much for watching. Let's leave it there, guys. Thanks for watching. Till next time, I hope you have a great day.